All right. No, thank you very much, Parfait. Welcome, colleagues, esteemed colleagues, to this Twendembele webinar, which we have themed as championing the institutionalization of the evaluation of the Sustainable Development Goals. And essentially, we're looking at the case studies of the Republic of Ghana and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that is the agenda before us, colleagues. Quite an important topic, I believe, because we're looking at two quite separate but interrelated topics: evaluation and how it can sort of be instrumental, essentially, in the gauging of country performance vis-a-vis sustainable development goals. And it's important, colleagues, because the sustainable development goals are quite a universal kind of agenda with all the nation states of the United Nations, all 194, 95 of them being party to the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030. So we've sort of decided to come up with discourse around some of the countries that have sort of been spearheading the championing of institutionalizing evaluations as part of a mechanism to sort of measure country performance with regards to all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we often refer to sustainable development goals as a UN agenda, but most of our country's national development plans, essentially, they speak to some of the socio-economic goals and environmental goals in the sustainable development agenda. If you look at poverty, you look at seeking jobs as sort of like an engine for sustainable economic activity growth, prosperity, looking at governance goals in terms of building strong institutions, because strong institutions, public institutions, are often the vehicle for socio-economic development. And then, of course, the major discourse around evaluation, colleagues, is that it needs to transcend into an instrumental tool for development, not just a discourse. So that's why we've sort of assembled this important webinar as Twendembele. And we've got three esteemed panelists who will be giving us case studies of the path walked by Nigeria as well as Ghana in terms of institutionalizing evaluations so that they are part and parcel of the reporting mechanisms and the production of reports that sort of seek to ascertain the level or extent to which the sustainable development goals are being met by our countries. And of course, this discourse is also equally important, colleagues, because most of our countries produce voluntary national reports to the high-level political forum at the UN. And of course, we've seen a trend over time that evaluations as an evidence source are hardly used by countries to inform those voluntary national review reports that are tabled at the UN. Equally important, I think, is the United Nations General Assembly resolution of 2023, Resolution 77 of 283, led by Nigeria, who was able to canvass partners to sort of table the agenda to sort of stimulate countries to sort of start commissioning and using evaluations as part of their voluntary national reviews. Unfortunately, most of our countries have produced actually two or more of these voluntary national review reports. So we hope such dialogues can actually inspire our countries to use evaluations as one of the dominant sources of evidence when drafting and presenting those voluntary national review reports. So that is by way of opening remarks, colleagues. I'll just get us through the agenda in terms of the order paper for today. We'll start off with a presentation from the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I'll introduce our speaker in a short while, which will be followed by the Ghanaian experience. Then we'll bring in a colleague who will give us a development partner perspective from UNICEF Nigeria, because we understand national evaluation systems, colleagues, to be inclusive of development partners as well, as key pillars of those evaluation systems. Then we'll move over to, I think, a Q&A session with our audience to ask questions to the panelists. And then Madam Amanda Dushaz will give us a synthesis and draw us to a close. So that is our agenda before us, colleagues. So it should be plus minus 1 hour of the webinar. So hopefully that is how long we will take, but it's a riveting discussion. So let me just take a moment now to introduce our first speaker. Dr. Bala Yusuf Yunusa, who's a development economist by training, and presently serves as the senior technical advisor to the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria. In his capacity, he provides technical leadership and strategic policy guidance in the overall implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Prior to this, he was a doctoral researcher and graduate teaching assistant at the Global Development Institute, University of Manchester in the United Kingdom, essentially where he was researching broadly on governance of development, poverty reduction strategies in sub-Saharan Africa, and has tutored and taught master's level courses in international development, development fundamentals, planning and managing development, and the global political economy. Dr. Bala holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics, upper second class honors from Bayero University in the state of Kano in Nigeria, a Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy degree in Development Economics and Policy from the University of Manchester in the UK. So that is by way of introduction. So over to you, Dr. Bala.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayabulele, for your kind words and introduction, and a very good afternoon, colleagues on this call. So I have a single task of, I don't know, can you see my screen now?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. With the little time we have on this occasion, I will try to do justice to the presentation. We will talk to the slides to see if we're able to address some of the key questions raised, about 7 in number. So I will be doing this with my colleague Donatien Temeko, who is the evaluation specialist, UNICEF country office in Abuja. So colleagues, following the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in September 2015, Nigeria acted very quickly in operationalizing the SDGs. And this is evident with the timely establishment of the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals right at the presidency, with fourfold mandate. That of horizontal and vertical intergovernmental planning and coordination, representation, advocacy and partnership development, resource mobilization and management, and finally monitoring, evaluation, and reporting for the SDGs. So you can see, by way of expressing Nigeria's commitment to the 2030 Agenda, a dedicated office was established in a timely manner to coordinate the implementation of the SDGs. So following this adoption, of course, you will agree with me that Nigeria has a huge implementation context for the 2030 Agenda. We have landmass of about 923,000 square kilometers divided into 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, and 774 local governments. So this is by no means a huge context. So our strategic approaches to the implementation of the SDGs can be seen at 2 different levels, at the national and at the subnational level. At the national level, what we've been doing is to make sure that the federal ministries, departments, and agencies integrate the relevant SDGs into their sectoral policies and plans. But then at the subnational level, we make sure that we work vertically with the 36 states and the FCT to, if you like, mainstream the SDGs into their medium as well as long-term development policies and plans. And that is our approach to mainstreaming, acceleration, and policy support for the SDGs and MAPs. Therefore, the office, while the office has coordinating capacity, the ministries, department, and agencies at the national and the subnational level are the ones implementing the SDGs. Of course, so this has all tried to take care of the background. So the role, this is because we have this strategic framework that coordinates the implementation of the SDGs, that then we are able to say, after 4-5 years of the implementation of the SDGs, let's work closely with our sister ministries, department, and agencies to conduct independent country-led evaluation of the SDGs. And when we started, we began this process. To the best of our knowledge, we were the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to commence this process way back in 2019. And of course, even at the conceptualization stage, we've worked closely with our development partners, the United Nations Development System broadly, but specifically on the country-led evaluation with the United Nations Children's Fund here in both in Abuja and also support from the headquarters. We started this process having participated at the capacity building workshop organized in December 2018 in Addis Ababa. We took inspiration from that capacity building, and the senior special assistant to the president committed to piloting the evaluation of priority SDGs at that point in time. And we got technical and financial support from the UNICEF country office, like I've mentioned. Of course, these are a few slides to highlight some of the issues that I've mentioned. We had to start by establishing a multi-stakeholder technical working committee on SDG evaluation, and this is both state and non-state actors. We have on one side all the relevant government ministries, departments, and agencies participating not only in the capacity building workshop, but also in the prioritization process for the SDGs that we needed to evaluate, looking at resource and time constraint at that time. And the process began way back in January 2019 with the capacity building workshop way in Lagos. And with that, we set out the priorities by prioritizing the SDGs based on our national development priorities at that point in time. And then in the main Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, we have a directorate of national monitoring and evaluation, and the composition of the technical working committee reflected that. The then director of the national Directorate of National Monitoring and Evaluation co-chaired the TWG on SDG evaluation in Nigeria, and we took inspiration from both national and global events to drive that evaluation process. Why did we conduct this evaluation? It was basically for learning, accountability, and evidence-based voluntary national review. When we started in 2019, Nigeria had presented the first voluntary national review in 2017, and we were committed to presenting the second in 2020. And therefore, the whole idea was, let's start the process. Should we conclude the process before presentation of our VNR? Then we are then able to present evidence-based voluntary national review that is well embedded in evaluation findings. This is the methodology of how we went about having prioritized 5 SDGs at that time for evaluation. I think SDG 1, SDG 3, 4, 5, 8. Yeah, these were the priority SDGs that we prioritized. But we were able to proceed with the complete evaluation of SDGs 3 on qualitative health and well-being, and SDG 4 on qualitative education and lifelong learning for all in Nigeria. We've also, the evaluation was inspired by the OECD criteria and the 2 SDG principles of gender equality and then leaving no one behind. I won't take too much of time on this because of time. So in the whole process between 2019, when we began this process, up until the completion of the 2 country-led evaluations, we've made so I was talking about the entire evaluation process. We had to do a lot of national and global advocacy. Some of the ones had to do nationally with the Interministerial Committee, where we meet quarterly with the ministries, department, and agencies. We provide useful updates on our methodological and conceptual approach to the country-led evaluation. Let me not take too much time on this. At the global level, we participated at the way back in March 2019 at the African Evaluation Conference in Abidjan. We were also at the High-Level Political Forum in July 2019, where we had side events sponsored by UNICEF to discuss methodology and strategic approach. We were also part of the Ideas Conference in Prague in 2019. The same with the conference that led to the midwife, the evaluation for national for evaluation practitioners in Finland in 2019, and of course other global forum that enable us to share our learnings. Now, part of why we think evaluation is more of a political undertaking than a technocratic undertaking is that you need a political commitment to say, let us conduct an evaluation in a national context. And we believe that the institutional framework for the delivery of or the coordination of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in Nigeria enable us to have that political commitment, which is situated right at the presidency with the resources needed to support this to happen. Capacity building, we also believe, should be integral part of a country-led evaluation, because we needed to build capacity from the very beginning up till then, and we still continue to advocate for building this capacity. And of course, technical and financial support from development partners, it's crucial for a successful evaluation, especially at the country level. One key important issue around this evaluation of priority SDGs in Nigeria is that the government actually took the driver's seats. We provided, made available both human and financial resources available. And of course, we were supported throughout the process, like I've mentioned, by the United Nations Children's Fund. So utilization of SDG evaluation in Nigeria, we have seen how that influenced Nigeria's voluntary national review in 2020, the second one. We also used some of the evaluation findings to inform the planning of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. And even yesterday, I was in a retreat where we're looking at girls' education in Nigeria, and we use some of the key findings to reinforce some of the arguments for what the civil society actors should use to advocate for more funding to the education sector, but also those that have to do with socio-cultural norms and advocacy around them. Now, it is also now general knowledge that through this, our experiment or experience, I would say, we are able to provide the needed leadership for United Nations member countries to have a resolution from the United Nations General Assembly on strengthening voluntary national reviews through country-led evaluation. So Nigeria, learning from our experience and as a clear demonstration of our commitment to this country-led evaluation, we teamed up with our development partners globally to mobilize the needed support to get a standalone United Nations resolution on strengthening VNR. It took us a lot of processes, meetings, forming groups of friends of evaluation at the global level. Of course, with the, like I've always said, with the recognition of the support of our development partners, and in this context, UNICEF to be specific, and other UN agencies, the WFP, UNDP, we all teamed up to form this group at the global level that supported and helped mobilize member countries to support this resolution. And we were supported finally by about 23 other member countries to achieve this. This is the snapshot of the resolution that was passed on the 13th of April 2023, to be precise. And I mean, it is clear what needs to be done going forward. And we believe that with this United Nations General Assembly resolution, then we even have a more, if you like, robust framework to drive country-led evaluation between now and 2030. Some of the strong statements recognize the need for support from both the United Nations Development System as well as other critical stakeholders around the 2030 agenda for member countries as they plan to review their implementation of the SDGs, but also even making it more useful and helpful through foundation. Highlighted this earlier, this always need for capacity building on the institutionalization of the SDGs, and we see some of these things happening. Standard capacity building for adequate knowledge on evaluation of what's tied to it, knowledge sharing, timely support to countries on VNR, document sharing, and all of that. Then the implementation of the UNGA resolution for country-led evaluation. I don't know if I've responded by way of talking to the slides to all the 7 questions, but I would like to conclude by arguing that evaluation of the SDGs and any other evaluation for that matter, we argue is more of a political than a technocratic undertaking. And evidently, Nigeria's institutional framework it's a clear demonstration of Nigeria's commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We have established institutional frameworks, both at the national and at the subnational level, to guarantee effective implementation of the SDGs. And therefore, both state and non-state actors are critical supporters of the implementation of the SDGs. And we also recognize that robust monitoring, evaluation, and reporting cannot be overemphasized. But we also recognize that while all these efforts are being made to implement the SDGs, we need the expertise and the resources of all critical stakeholders, the public and the private sector, the United Nations Development System, the scientific community, and the wider civil society in support of the implementation of the SDGs during the decade of action. I will stop here and allow my friend and colleague to join and reinforce some of these arguments, and then we can conclude. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
No, thanks so much, Doc, for that comprehensive presentation. I think because we've got someone, a colleague of ours, who will be synthesizing all the presentations towards the end. Let me not spend too much time, but of course, I think some of the things that spring through, it's the political commitment that has enabled Nigeria to be such a staunch champion of SDG evaluations, also recognizing the role of technical and financial support from the development partners. And I think on that note, Doc, let me bring in Mr. Donasia Tameko, who is the evaluation manager within UNICEF Nigeria. Mr. Donasian has served UNICEF for 21 years in program planning, monitoring and evaluation, and executive management, where he has demonstrated solid experience in program formulation and development, coordination and management, and high-quality evaluations in a range of countries classified by the World Bank as either lower middle-income countries, upper middle-income countries. So he's worked across a diverse range of countries that essentially straddle various development classifications. Mr. Donatien is a national of Cameroon, where he worked with the Ministry of Economic Planning and Regional Development. He's a demographer with a Master of Science in Demography and an economist with a Master of Science with majors in applied statistics, econometrics, data management, development evaluation, and international economics. Mr. Donasia, over to you, sir, for continuing with the Nigerian case study.
Thank you, Dr. Aya, and my dear colleague and estimate friend, Dr. Bala, for presenting the experience of Nigerians as for SDG evaluation. Speaking from UNICEF, and most importantly, from the partner perspective, what we can say is that we took SDG evaluation very seriously. And it is clear that the formulations of country program in UNICEF are required to be consistently aligned in the way that they support countries' efforts to achieve SDG. So this is at the planning level and the program formulation. But at the same time, we are also tasked to support the countries monitoring their effort progress in SDG and making some progress around all the different SDG targets. So we know all that. But for UNICEF for UNICEF specifically, we have 19 SDG indicators on which UNICEF is the global custodian. And there are 48 SDG targets that are child related. So in our delivery, in our support to country where we work as UNICEF, we support country in many areas. Number one is making sure that we have sound methodologies, for example, to capture the progress on different indicators that I mentioned, either the indicators on which UNICEF are custodians or indicators for which that are child related. We also work around issues of standards. We work on mechanism for the compilations, verifications of data, monitoring, and support databases to monitor the progress on those specific indicators. But what is very important is that we understood the role of evaluation in advancing the conversation around the progress on the SDG. And that's why UNICEF chose to invest from the beginning on the evaluating SDG. And we want to recognize the leadership of the Office of a Special Assistant Advisor to the President of Nigeria, because Nigeria, I think UNICEF has been quite fortunate to have an office that was fully dedicated in just not only monitoring SDG, but making sure that they can coordinate actions around it. And we use that opportunity as an entry point in our constant effort to support a national evaluation system. So we've seen the evaluation of SDG as an entry point for the national evaluation capacity development. In Nigeria, we do have the national M&A policy that also been approved very recently, but its implementation is just ongoing, and we want to use every opportunity we have to quick start to improve the to use that as an entry point where we can work together as partners to bring our support to the strengthening of national evaluation capacity in the country. So that's something that we have been doing very clearly. And the way we do it in Nigeria, we do it through the UN system. For example, I think Dr. Bala mentioned the technical working group, and you have the UN that is led by UNICEF on that specific group. And this is also most aligned with the proper structure of UN, because we have the United Nations Strategic Development Cooperation Framework, and we have an M&A group inside that that is advising country representative in supporting the national M&A system. But now the technical working group and the SDG is one of the subcomponents of the overall UN M&E group that is also advising not only the UN country teams, but also is assisting countries in developing their M&E system as overall. So in general, what we are trying to do through the SDG evaluation is just to use another opportunity to contribute in the national evaluation capacity development. So this is very important for us. We started doing evaluation 3 and 4 because they are clearly very related to the mandate of UNICEF, but we are also open to support other SDG where things that are child related. But what we've been discussing right now is, okay, and not only we have evaluation, but we also have other evidence products, evidence activities that are generated. We have also other evidence, either through the research, either through studies or surveys and so on. So the next point is to question ourselves. Do we just need evaluations of SDG, or do we need just to improve the evidence around the SDG by bringing complementary functions of evidence, either from research, survey, evaluation, studies, to make sure that the country at any time can have a sense of the progress it is making against the SDG targets. So this is a discussion that is ongoing, and we are looking forward to capture part of it in the next series of SDG evaluation. And I know Dr. Bala and I and the UNICEF HQ, we've been discussing, for example, about the need of producing some evidence synthesis on some SDG instead of doing evaluation. So again, the most important point is to make sure that at any point we have a clear understanding of where the country stands in progressing against the SDG target. So to summarize, we are here to support the country office, but also the country, but this is also a learning opportunity for us as a partner to see where are the gaps and how we can work to also cover those evidence gaps beyond evaluation. Over.
Okay. Yeah, thanks so much, Mr. Tamiko, for that overview. I think some of the things coming through is the recognition by I think UNICEF Nigeria that SDGs 3 and 4, speaking on quality healthcare, quality education, they are standing mandates of UNICEF. Hence, the natural move towards partnering with the government of Nigeria to pursue such evaluations. But I think another important food for thought provided on the table in your presentation or remarks is that evaluation should be one entry point or one source of evidence, but it should not be the only one, but should be complemented by other sources of evidence, such as evidence synthesis methodologies, because I think all sorts of evidence are needed for us to sort of ascertain the true picture of our attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you very much, colleagues, for that Nigerian experience. I think let me now move over to Mr. Daniel Amofa to give us a case study of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Amofa is an M&E practitioner with over 12 years working experience. He's currently serving as the principal planning analyst with Ghana's National Development Planning Commission. Over many years, he's led various key components of the NDPC's mandate, including the preparation of the medium-term development policy frameworks, such as Agenda for Jobs 2022 to 2025, as well as the earlier one of 2018 to 2021. He's also spearheaded, been involved in the President's Coordinated Program of Economic and Social Development Policies, 2017 to 2024. Daniel has been an integral member of the team responsible for coordinating and reporting on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union Agenda 2063 in Ghana. He was part of the technical team that developed Ghana's voluntary national review for 2022, as well as 2020, and Agenda 2063 report for 2021 and 2023. Furthermore, He's been part of the team that developed Ghana's 2022 New Urban Agenda report and conducted a rapid assessment on children and young people's development, water and sanitation, and youth unemployment and job creation. He was also part of the team that developed Ghana's technical report on sustainable development goals, transformation, and commitments. Over to you, Daniel, for your presentation of the Ghanaian case study.
Thank you very much. I might say that listening to Dr. Bawa, I could see a lot of similarities between Ghana and Nigeria, and it's no wonder we are very good neighbors and countries that work hand in hand. And so I'm going to start the presentation by taking you through the overview of how SDGs is being implemented in Ghana. I'll discuss some tools or evaluations that are being done. Then we'll discuss the status of our achievements so far. And then we would also discuss some measures. And so to start with, let me say that for Ghana, SDG and our development is seen as one. And so it's fully integrated into the implementation of our policy frameworks that guides the planning and budgeting in country. And so that is fully integrated. And just like Dr. Bala said, we also have a special advisor to the president on SDGs. And we also have an SDGs advisory unit that sits in the office of the president to advise the president on SDGs. Aside that, we also have a fully functional structure that allows for us to monitor, evaluate, and report on the SDGs. And so you would see that we have a three-pronged structure. We have the implementation structure, we have the coordination structure, and then we have the supervisory structure. I must say that for Ghana, full implementation is done leveraging on our decentralized planning system, which we have in Ghana, that is both top-down and bottom-up. And at the implementation section, just like Dr. Bala said, we have at the national level, the sectors, ministries, and departments undertaking the planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation. And at the sub-national level, we have the regions and the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies undertaking the implementation of the SDGs. And so you would see that the reason why we leverage on the planning system is because the planning system talks about the people and getting your information from the grassroots, which then enhances one of the key principles of the SDGs, which is leaving no one behind. And so the planning system allows us to ensure that every stakeholder that is critical is part of the process. But let me come back to the implementation structure and say that you will see that because Ghana uses the whole government and whole society approach, you will see that at the coordination role, we have development partners on board, we have civil society on board, we have the philanthropic group that also extends to the private sector fully on board. The idea is that as we coordinate, there are so many facets or stakeholders that are implementing different actions that are intended to help us address the SDGs. And you need to ensure that all of them are on board. From the development partners providing you the technical and financial support, and the civil society also providing you the angle of the civil society, which is usually very different from the angle of government. You also have the private sector also providing you a different perspective. And that together helps us to be able to capture the entire implementation of the SDGs. I must say that just like Nigeria, Ghana also has a fully functional M&E system that is also bottom up, that also leverages on the planning system to ensure that M&E is conducted. Interestingly enough, for Ghana, evaluations are both from national and sub-national. And so, just as I said, for us, the SDG is integrated into our planning system. That means as sectors, districts, and regions are planning, they are already planning for SDG. Every action they do is towards addressing the SDG Agenda 23 and COP. And so that is well integrated. And part of the functions of the sectors and districts is to conduct evaluations. And we will speak to that as we go ahead. And so, as I said, the SDGs are fully integrated into the coordinated program of economic and social development policies, which is the president's expression of what he wants to do within the time frame that he or she has. And that is then translated into the medium-term national policy framework that is then picked up by the ministries, departments, and agencies and the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies to prepare their medium-term plans. And I must say the indicators are also well aligned into the results metrics that are developed for tracking the implementation of the policy framework. And also you see it within our budgeting system. And so I'll speak to that as we go along. You would see that for government's flagship initiatives, they've all fully been aligned to achieving the SDGs. So you can talk about Agenda 111, you can talk about one district, one factory. We have the planting for food and jobs. You have affordable housing. You have water and sanitation, free senior high school, livelihood empowerment. That are all initiatives geared towards addressing the SDGs. And the great thing about Ghana that makes it easier for us to implement the SDGs is that you would see that the policy framework as it stands is already aligned to the SDGs. What that means is that if a ministry is picking a strategy to address, they already know which SDGs they are addressing. And so they can easily tell you how far they've gone in addressing the SDGs, which is one of the innovative things that Ghana has done that is helping us to report. Now, since the SDG came in force, Ghana has submitted 2 SDG reports. We've submitted 2 voluntary national reviews. We've also submitted budget reports that track how expenditure flows are going into implementation of SDGs. We've also produced 3 Agenda 23 reports that are also aligned. We also have the development monitor that allows us to compare our progress in the implementation of our development efforts, which is aligned to the SDGs, with other comparator countries and see where we are doing well. We have the district elite table that is a form of evaluative tool for evaluating the implementation of service delivery at the local level. And then we have different tools. So I'll speak to that. So when it comes to evaluation, one of the things that Ghana really prouds itself is that for us, when we talk about voluntary national review, we are not just talking about reporting on the status of progress. We go a step further to do some evaluation of citizens' perspective as to how the implementation of SDG is going. Beside that, we go a step further, as I spoke earlier, because we have the CSOs also on board. We have the CSOs also helping us do an evaluation of, from the CSO perspective, how implementation of SDG is going and how best government can ensure that the SDGs are fully implemented. We also leverage on the district league table, as I said. But one of the other things we are also proud of and speak of is that we've gone into the voluntary local reviews, and we are pushing hard to get a lot of voluntary local reviews done. And I can confirm that even at this upcoming high-level political forum, we'll be presenting 2 voluntary local reviews that evaluates the subnationals' efforts towards achieving the SDGs. And so you would see that for the 2019 voluntary national reviews, we did a bit of evaluations to get the citizens' perspective. But aside that, we also had the CSOs also do what we call the shadow report, which is more of the CSOs' evaluation of government and total country implementation of the SDGs. We also leveraged on, and again, it comes back to our collaboration with our partners, the UNICEF U report application that allowed us to also get the youth's evaluation of our implementation. And all that was featured into the voluntary national review. Now, in 2022, we went a step further to carry out a rapid assessment focusing on children and youth, water and sanitation and hygiene, unemployment, and jobs, which were very critical, pertinent issues that were coming up in country, to get the perspectives and understand what the broader issues are. And again, I must say this was at the time of COVID. And so, as we all know, there was a lot of impact that COVID caused. And so it was very essential that we evaluate the impact of COVID vis-a-vis the citizens' impression of how the SDGs and the initiatives of government is helping address poverty, issues of unemployment, which are also very critical issues. And then a step further, we had the youth also do a youth SDG report that also evaluated from the youth's perspective how implementation is going. For the voluntary local reviews, we had Accra Metropolitan Assembly, and this was done as far back as 2020 and was presented at the high-level political forum in 2020. For the one I talked about that we are going to do this year, and is going to be presented in July, we have the Ghana West Municipal Assembly and then the Secondary Accra Metropolitan Assembly also presenting. Then we have the district league table, as I said, also supported both technically and financially by UNICEF. That is an evaluation of how education, health and nutrition, water and sanitation, energy, and overall governance is happening at the subnational level. And this also leverages on the SDG indicators for education, health, nutrition, water and sanitation, energy, and also on governance for doing the evaluation on the subnational level. We also have the evaluations that are reported as part of reporting on the progress of implementing the medium-term plans at the subnational and the national level. Again, let's remember that because it's fully integrated, as they implement their medium-term plan and they are reporting on the SDGs. And so we've had some few evaluations that have been done. And I must say, again, that due to financial and technical challenges, the evaluations are not as much as we would have wished, but there are ongoing efforts to ensure that more evaluations are done. But at the national level, we did a country-led midterm evaluation of the policy framework that was being implemented from 2018 to 2021, with a big focus on SDG 1, poverty, SDG 3 on health, 4 on education, 6 dealing with water and sanitation, 8 and 9 dealing with jobs and employment issues, and 16 and 7 dealing with governance and partnership as a whole, to allow us to plan better for the subsequent implementations. At the subnational level, there's been some form of evaluations that are also tied to understanding the implementation of the SDGs at the subnational level. And so you have the terminal evaluation of the mechanized borehole to get a sense of how citizens feel about the borehole functionality. We've had midterm evaluation of the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative at the subnational level, which is an evaluation of how the initiative has gone. And because that initiative also seeks to ensure that we promote agriculture and also leverage on that to reduce poverty, it was essential to get that evaluation. And there's been one subnational assembly that has done a full evaluation of their medium-term plan implementation, leveraging on the OECD criteria of relevance, efficiency, effectiveness, sustainability, and impact. Then we also have the district performance assessment tool that also has support from various development partners that we also do to evaluate the efficiency and accountability of service delivery at the subnational level. And in pictorial form, these are the tools that I just described. There are more that you can see. And I must say that you can see on the blue side is the COVID-19 tracker that was also very essential for us in understanding when it comes to issues of poverty, issues of the effect of COVID on businesses. They were very instrumental in providing government with a better view of it. And I must say that that also led to government coming up with the Obatampa initiative, which I refer to, which is the COVID-19 alleviation and business enterprise support, revitalization of the enterprise support that sought to address the issues that were found in the evaluation of the COVID-19 impacts. Now, when it comes to policy making, as I said, the evaluations we've done so far, both at the subnational and national level, have helped us to shape government's prioritization of interventions. It's also helped in Ghana being able to identify 5 priority targets that will help us in achieving the SDGs fully by 2030. And these targets are 16.6, target 16.6 dealing with governance, 8.5 dealing with employment and employment issues, 4.1 dealing with primary and secondary education and gender equality issues with education, 6.2 dealing with sanitation and open defecation issues, and then 7.3 dealing with renewable energy. And these could not have been done if we had not had those evaluations that have been done so far. In terms of planning, the evaluations we've done is helping inform the guidelines we issue to the MDAs and MMDAs to help them in prioritizing which actions they focus on in their medium-term plans. When it comes to budgeting, it's helped us in updating our SDG budget manual that we provide for the subnational and national. And it's also helped in shaping the budget guidelines that are issued. Now, in terms of our performance, we are, as at the 2023 SDG index score, we were ranked 122 out of 166 with an index score of 61.8, which there is more to be done, but must say is higher than the sub-Saharan average of 53. And in terms of the goals, most of them we are on track, but there are a few that also have stagnated and a few that also have some challenges that we are trying to address with the SDG Transformation Prioritization report, which focuses on the 5 SDG targets that are essential. Now, as part of ensuring that we institutionalize evaluations and make it more frequent, Ghana is in the process of developing a national M&E policy. It's been developed. It's currently at cabinet being reviewed, and we hope that by the end of this year, that policy will be out. And in that policy, there are mandatory evaluations that are expected to be done by stakeholders at the subnational and national level. And there are also some budget allocations that are recommended for ensuring that there are finances available for rigorous evaluations to be done. We are also, as part of ensuring that we close the gap on the technical evaluation issues, we are running on continuous capacity building that we are going to continue to do each year to help stakeholders, especially at the subnational, build their capacity to undertake more evaluations. And we plan to undertake more voluntary local reviews to ensure that at the subnational level, there is a lot of evaluations that are done. On that note, I'd like to thank you. So thank you very much. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
No, thanks so much, Daniel. Indeed, quite a lot of synergies with the Nigerian case study. And I think following on from that presentation, it's great to see how essentially Ghana's planning system has effectively integrated SDGs as a cardinal pillar for planning, rather than the usual attempt by governments to sort of say, okay, we've got this plan, maybe it aligns to SDGs, so and so and so forth. So I think the integration of SDGs into planning has certainly made it easier for the M&D system to also be able to grapple with those SDGs. I think because of time, colleagues, let me hand over to Amanda to run the Q&A, because I see quite a number of chats. Amanda, so let me hand over to you to facilitate the Q&A session. But thanks, Daniel, for also bringing in the importance of a bottom-up and top-down kind of M&D system similar to Nigeria. As a federal state, Nigeria has sort of successfully sort of integrated SDGs as a planning mechanism, both for states as well as central government. But I see in Ghana as well, with national government, SDGs are a priority. So are the subnational metropolitan municipalities and district assemblies. So I think there's quite a lot of institutionalization going on, both in terms of planning as well as monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. So, Amanda, let me hand over to you, Madam, to take us to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Aya. Thanks for that. So we have a question from Yuri Vanikerk, who asks the criteria for selecting high, medium, and low performing states. Yuri, I'm assuming that you are asking Daniel, is that right? Daniel Lamofa for that? Or Donatien,
No,
maybe
I think it's
partnership
for Bala, Dr. Bala.
Oh, is okay for Dr. Bala then. Dr. Bala?
Thank you so much. I didn't want to bother us with those slides on prioritization and even the methodology because of the limited time we have. But what we did was to make reference to the multiple indicator cluster survey, the one that predates the evaluation. So we have data across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. So we looked at the high-performing 3 states and the low-performing ones, including the ones that are at the transition. So then that was how the technical working committee, alongside the consultants, prioritized those states. Also other criteria like having an education sector strategic plan that is being implemented, and a number of other objective criteria that enable us to do that comparative evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bala. Then we just have a comment from Lydia Mbia, who says they are an independent research and evaluation consultant. Hi, Lydian. We have another question. How disaggregated are data in both Ghana and Nigeria? And to what extent are the VNRs of both countries digging into the peripheral areas, the countrysides, to provide a true picture of what's on the ground with respect to all the SDGs?
So we're working closely with the National Bureau of Statistics at the moment. We have completed the realignment of the national statistical system with the requirements and indicators of the SDGs. What we now need to do is to deepen that at the subnational level so that on an annual basis, we hope to get data on the 230 key performance indicators through the national statistical system. And of course, that will enable segregated data across the indicators. Now, the second or the follow-up question was around what are we doing to make sure that our voluntary national reviews are, I think, inclusive and broad-based. I think that is the thrust of that question. And the 2 voluntary national reviews we delivered in 2017 and 2020 were done in a whole of society, whole of government approach. And also because we run a federal system, we have the subnational as integral partners to this. But more importantly, we have the non-state actors that are operating across the entire development landscape in Nigeria, and their inputs were taken into consideration. For example, the 2020 voluntary national review that we presented, we had the committee of, or if like the group of persons with disability, that they had a consultation across the 6 geopolitical zones and synthesized their findings and submitted, which we integrated into the VNR. We had the civil society strategy group. Of course, all the CSOs are operating at the subnational level. They're either in one community, one local government, then the states, before they're in the Federal Republic. So we had the civil society had to do their own regional consultations across the 6 geopolitical zones and synthesize their findings, and the findings went into the VNR. The same with the private sector partners under the private sector advisory group on SDGs. They also consulted and then synthesized their findings. So that was what I was, and then we did a synthesis of about 47 evaluation evidence around the 7 priority reporting SDGs for the second voluntary national review 2020. So that was our methodological approach to the VNR, and we felt that that is quite broad-based and inclusive. And now we have supported 2 subnational governments to do voluntary local reviews, like I've seen in the case of Ghana as well. We have Kaduna and Lagos that were supported last year. So should we will be presenting our 3rd voluntary national review next year. Just got the confirmation this morning that Nigeria has been selected by ECOSOC to present the 3rd voluntary national review next year, 2025. So we will take this learning and make sure that we even do a much more evidence-based VNR this time out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bala.
Okay, maybe just to add on, Amanda, just to say that most of the processes Dr. Bala outlined, it's what Ghana also adopted. And so we also have the statistical system aligned. And I must say, when the SDG even came first, we categorized the indicators into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 being those that are already within the system, tier 2 being those that needed some further work on the methodology to allow the system to report, and tier 3 being the ones that need further work. And so those alignments have been done. What we've done again is at the subnational level to build their capacity to collect administrative data. And so we've developed a tool, an Excel tool that allows them to collect aggregated data and disaggregated data at their level to also feed back up into the national statistical system. And so that's something we are still working on. In terms of inclusivity, we as much as possible, as I said, because of the structure, inherent in the structure itself is the inclusivity. We ensure that all key stakeholders, as Dr. Bala said, the civil society is at the table, private sector is at the table, you have development partners at the table. You also have representatives of the subnational at the table. That means that you are getting different perspectives as you work. And even in the 2022 VNR, we went a step further. We shared the results to get feedback from the Persons with Disability Council and the members. We had a whole session with them. We had a different session with the development partners to get their perspective on the voluntary national review. We had same with the subnational stakeholders. We had another one with civil society and one also with private sector to ensure that what we are reporting is inclusive and captures all views. And in fact, you would see that in the 2022 VNR, we went a step further to also provide some case studies that are relevant for telling the story. And so I think that with that approach, there was inclusivity, and we ensured that all the needs of different stakeholders were captured. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We are already over time, but if I could ask you to please quickly answer this second question, which is about the mechanisms that are in place to ensure transparency and accountability in the SDG evaluation process in both countries. And this is from Nosi Babalwe. Dr. Bala, would you like to answer that?
Okay, so I think the transparency and accountability has to do with the composition of the technical working group or committee on the SDG evaluation in Nigeria, and therefore we had the co-chair of the committee. We have the government officials. We have UNICEF representing the UN. UNDP, UNICEF, UNDP representing the United Nations Development System. We have the private sector representative, the civil society, all sitting on this process. Of course, the evaluators are independent as well. They're not government officials. They are recruited to do a professional job. And throughout the process, whatever they do, is being reviewed or was being reviewed by the TWG, and that was how we made sure that the it's equal participation by all the critical stakeholders, and I think that enables us to have each free.
Amanda, maybe just to say that, just as Dr. Bala said, for us, as I showed, the Implementation Coordination Committee has all the key stakeholders on board, and they are responsible for ensuring that the reports and the implementation of SDG is transparent and all. So you have all of them on board, and with them on board, it's in itself clear of the transparency that we want. And also I see a question on CSO generated data. Yes, and so we are receptive to CSO generated data as much as its coverage is wide. And so again, for CSO data, and so you would see that in the 2022 VNR, at the back, you would see a lot of CSO case studies that also provide CSO data that we've attached and we've included in the VNR report. But again, we also need to be sure that when we are using CSO data, it's not a small scale data that does not represent the entire situation. And so that's also something that we need to take on board. In as much as we are receptive when we use it, there's also the part that we need to also be careful not to use a small subset to represent the entire nation. Thank you.
Understood. Taku, I hope you're happy with that answer. Then we're really over time, but Lydian sent another message saying, what strategies do Ghana or Nigeria adopted to ensure there are sufficient powerful incentives within these governments to conduct SDGs evaluation to good quality standards and their utility to the public? Who would like to take that question?
Okay, so I think in essence, what the question seeks to ask is whether there are standards that guide the evaluations and whether we have checks and balances for ensuring that the evaluations are of the best standard. And the answer is yes, we have an evaluation standard that you can find within the National M&E manual that has been created in country, and I think it's one of in most African countries. We had it way back in 2014 that provides the step-to-step process for even conducting evaluations. Aside that, for the evaluations, when it's done, we bring stakeholders, and for Ghana, we have the Ghana Monitoring and Evaluation Forum that is made up of evaluation experts that scrutinize the evaluation, even from the standpoint of the development of the questionnaire to the findings that come out. So I think that those are good enough structures for ensuring that the quality is of the best. So over to you, Dr. Ba.
Okay, thank you. Just to add, here in Nigeria, as part of the membership of the TWG, we had the national president of the Nigeria Evaluation Association throughout the entire evaluation process. We have the national M&E policy that was launched, I think 2021. That was even while we were implementing the entire process. So yes, standard has to be followed, and of course, like I said, these are professional evaluators that were hired to provide professional services for the evaluation for Nigeria. So I think that concern should have been addressed by the participation of the NEA in the entire process, and also engagement of competent and professional evaluators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bala, Daniel, for answering that last question. On that note, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. And on behalf of Twende, I'd like to extend our gratitude to our speakers, Dr. Bala, Daniel Lamofa, and Donatien Tameko, for your insightful presentations, and to all of you for your engaging questions and your participation. For more information and to share, to stay updated on our upcoming events, please visit our website or follow us on our social media channels. We look forward to seeing you at our very next event, and I wish everybody a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.